Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my cozy and charming book recommendations. This video is part 4 in my fall and Halloween book recommendations kind of series. I'll have the playlist linked down below if you're interested in seeing my other lists. So far we've done spooky thrillers, dark and creepy books, paranormal romances, and now we're doing the cozy, light-hearted, charming kind of books. I'm excited about this list. I've been reading so many dark, serious books where people are getting murdered and like all of this stuff. And sometimes it's just nice to jump to a more like light-hearted book to balance it out and to keep you from going crazy. So I have 7 books on today's list. I'll have all of the books linked down below in the description if you want to go check them out. Feel free to leave any other cozy recommendations you can think of down below in the description. This was actually the hardest of the 4 to come up with. I read a lot of thrillers, I read a lot of dark books, I read a lot of paranormal romances, but when it comes to like the light-hearted, fun, happy books, apparently I don't like to be happy. But I hope you guys are enjoying your spooky season so far this year. And without further ado, let's just get straight into the books. So the first one that I have to talk about is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is the first book in a middle grade series, and I actually just finished reading the sequel to this year. And I read this one for last Halloween. And these books follow our main character Cassidy Blake, whose best friend is a ghost because he saved her life. And so because she was on the brink of death, she can now see ghosts, and the two of them are sort of connected from that experience. Her parents are running this new sort of reality TV show where they're traveling to different haunted locations across the world as ghost hunters kind of thing, even though they don't necessarily believe that their daughter can see ghosts, which is kind of ironic. And we're basically following Cassidy's adventures as she learns about these powers that she has and sort of the responsibilities that might come along with being able to see ghosts. I believe this is being adapted into something now, which is really cool. I've given both of these books either a 3 or a 4 out of 5 stars. They are very cute. They are very fun to read, very lighthearted. They remind me of like the Disney Channel Halloween movies, like that kind of vibe. Definitely a very fast read, both because they're middle grade and also just because they're fun stories. And I like the settings, like we're going to different settings. The sequel that I just read was set in Paris. This first book is set in Scotland, and it's just a fun, traveling, spooky book that focuses on different like historical landmarks that may or may not be haunted. So if you like history and you like ghost stories, I think you'll really like this. The second book that I'm going to be recommending is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. There's something about this series that just screams fall to me. It's not super spooky. It's a little bit weird. I know this is a super popular series, so you guys have probably heard a lot of people talk about it, and you've probably seen a lot of people struggle to explain it as well. But in this book, we're following Blue Sargent. She comes from a family of psychics and sort of finds her way into this group of boys who go to this all-boys private school. This book has a very weird and complicated plot, so I feel like that's not the best way to describe this book. I would read this book because of the characters and their relationships and the weird sort of mythology in here. It's unlike anything I've ever read. It's about these ley lines, which are like magical power lines kind of in the ground, and this legend that if you wake this king you get a wish from him. I think either the second or the third book in the series are my absolute favorite. They are a little bit slower paced, but I think they're perfect to read this time of year. Another series I would recommend is the Jacoby series by William Ritter. This is a 4-book series and no one ever talks about these books, and they're so good, especially if you like Doctor Who, Sherlock Holmes, Scooby-Doo. You gotta read these books. We're following the assistant of Jacoby, and Jacoby is this sort of supernatural detective. He's trying to solve all of these supernatural related crimes, and no one believes him. No one believes that he can actually like see supernatural stuff. Everyone just thinks he's crazy, but he's like low-key brilliant. This book is just quirky, funny, good times. It's set in New England in 1892, and it's just a fun kind of kooky mystery series. You definitely can't take it seriously. Like, it's supposed to be very silly and lighthearted, but I've thoroughly enjoyed all of the books in this series. I would highly recommend this one. My next recommendations is Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. I went back and forth on what list I thought this book belonged in, and I chose this video because I just think the strongest element of this book is the humor. Like, it's a zombie love story, so I guess it's sort of a paranormal romance, but more than anything else, I think this book is just funny. The movie of this was actually pretty decent, but I still think the book has like a totally different tone to it, so I really think it's worth reading the book. If you're unfamiliar with this storyline, it's this sort of post-apocalyptic story of a zombie with no memories and very little humanity left in him falling in love with a girl, and it's sort of bringing him back to life. It's a very short book, it's a very quick read, and even though it does have to deal with zombies and the majority of the population being dead, I think it's very lighthearted and it just makes you happy to read it. It's a very fun take on Romeo and Juliet for sure. The next book that I'm going to be recommending, I've mentioned I think in one other video in this series, and that was Paranormalcy by Kirsten White. This is a YA paranormal romance, but more than anything else, I just think of this as a lighthearted and fun fall kind of book. Our main character, Evie, is a human. I think she's either 14 or 15 years old. It definitely reads on the younger end of YA. And she works for a paranormal containment agency. So basically her job is to capture supernatural creatures so they can bring them in so they can be like neutralized so they can't harm society anymore. So we have vampires, werewolves, mermaids, fairies, you name it, it's in this book, shapeshifters, and it's just a really fun book. I haven't continued on with the rest of the series yet. It's a trilogy, but it's a cutesy paranormal romance. Evie has a lot of spunk, she's funny, she has very questionable fashion sense, but it's kind of funny. And it's a very like wholesome and sweet love story with like a touch of mystery in there. I would definitely recommend the audiobook for this one, and I think this is perfect if you're just looking for something lighthearted and easy to read. This is perfect for people who don't like to be scared around Halloween. My next recommendation is from the same author of a book that we've already talked about, and that is The Archived by Victoria Schwab. I know Victoria Schwab's newer series have become super popular on BookTube, but I think this book and its sequel, it's a duology, are some of her best books. I love them, they're so fun, and I think they're perfect for this time of year. Our main character's name is Mackenzie and she's a keeper. And so basically this is set in a world where the dead rests on shelves like books, and disturbed spirits can like get up and start walking around through the archive, and as a keeper she's supposed to make sure none of them get back out into the real world. They're kind of like ghosts, they're called histories, they're like ghosts of people, and this book definitely has that like gothic emo feel to it. I love interest, whereas Guyliner, I was all for this book. It was so much fun. There's a private school, it's just like the whole vibe and the whole setting I just love for this time of year. I'm actually now thinking I kind of want to reread these books because it's been a while. I wouldn't call these books fast-paced. I remember reading them pretty slowly, but I really enjoyed the characters in here. I loved the world in here. The romance was so freaking cute, especially in the sequel, and I just think this is so imaginative and unique, so underrated, so freaking underrated. And then my last recommendation for this video I think is kind of obvious, but that is Harry Potter. This is obviously the illustrated edition, and it's never a bad time to read or reread Harry Potter, but I feel like the fall time is just perfect for this series. I haven't reread these books in a really long time, and so I figured fall would be the perfect time to do it, and I'm gonna do it with the illustrated editions. I haven't read the illustrated editions yet, so I'm really excited. I was actually just watching the movies last night. But these books, I think it might also be sort of like the childhood nostalgia of it, but there's just something so cozy about them, and I love reading them in the fall. And then like obviously as you get later into the series, they get darker, and it goes from being like lighthearted to like the creepier side of the spectrum, which just means you get to experience like all of the different fall vibes with this series. So yeah, those are going to be all of my recommendations for today for cozy, lighthearted, charming books. Make sure to leave your best recommendations down below in the comments. I would love to see them. Tell me what book you are most excited to read this fall. When I put like all of my TBR books together, it was like 30 books long. I had so many books that I wanted to read this season. But yeah, like I said, I'll have the playlist for all of my fall recommendation videos linked down below in the description if you want to go check out the previous sort of categories. If you're new here, I would love it if you would subscribe. I put up at least 2 new videos every single week, and I would love to have you stick around. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up. You can follow me on Instagram if you want. All of my links are down below in the description. And other than that, I think I'll just see you guys in my next video very, very soon. Bye.
So hit me. So hit me. So hit me. First a confession. With you, I feel a connection. With